Welcome to the Fruitful Faith Women on Mission podcast. This podcast is created for purpose-driven women just like you who crave more. On the Fruitful Faith podcast, you can expect Christ-centered conversations that will help you to cultivate a life that you and He love. We'll be talking about topics that matter, topics that impact your everyday life. We'll talk about anything from how to transition with grace, to what to do when you're overwhelmed, to how to be content and joyful right where God's got you. It's going to be good. Let's dive in. Hey everyone, and welcome to the Fruitful Faith podcast. I'm your host, Alexandra Cavill. I'm a certified Christian life coach for purpose-driven women who crave more and the founder of Grace-Based Christian Coaching. Today's episode's a fun one. It's a story. If you've ever dreamed of leaving your day job to pursue your God-given dream, this episode's going to be for you. What we're doing today is that I'll be sharing a bit of the inside scoop on where I've been, which was a place of unhappiness and unfulfillment, and then how I got to where I am now, which is living out my God dream while helping women to transform their lives. So it's going to be good. I pray that it is such a blessing for you, an eye-opener, and allows you to really step boldly into where God's got you. So let's just get started and jump on in. Okay, so most of my life, I'd spent it feeling unworthy. I felt like I didn't have a voice. I felt like what I said didn't matter, and I was incredibly insecure and lacked confidence. It was really hard, and it wasn't a fun place to be, right? So I had a lot of doubt. I didn't trust myself. I didn't even know what I wanted. And I was just really focused on what other people thought I should do and what others wanted me to do. And it led me to an okay place for a while. I was a hard worker, got great grades in school, went to a great college, and ended up at 22 being accepted into an incredible physician assistant program. I thought healthcare was where I needed to be. That was a great job to have, great salary to have. It's what other people thought would be a good thing for me to do. And so I worked hard, got into several programs, and started as a PA. So fast forward about 2 weeks in, I knew that was not the right spot for me to be. Was just miserable and in tears at the end of every single day. And I knew that I had to do something different, but I had no idea what that something was. And so I withdrew from that program, the program that I worked so hard to get into. I was a psychology major in undergraduate, but all my electives were pre-med. Instead of taking fun courses, my electives were physics and chemistry and anatomy, things like that. And it felt crazy. What was I doing after all of that time and the hundreds of patient care hours that I had poured in? So I withdrew and I spent a lot of time in front of the computer. I did a lot of researching, trying to figure out what's next. What's next for me? And for someone with no clarity, no confidence, and not a lot of faith at all, it was hard. It was a painful process. And so I started to get really curious at what I was good at. I was so focused at what I lacked, where I fell short, what wasn't perfect. And I had no idea what I did well. It was so hard for me to see that and so uncomfortable for me to even think about it. So I dove into a lot of different assessments. One of my favorites years ago when I was doing this deep internal work was actually the Myers-Briggs assessment. I don't know if you know your MBTI type, but I found out that I was an INFJ. And so I spent a lot of time looking at what different careers would be great for this personality type. Also took a strong interest inventory test. That might be another one for you to look into if that's something that you're curious about. And I even remember the very first time when I was 18 as a freshman in college taking that interest inventory. And it said that I should do something in the faith-based realm. And I heard that. And as soon as I heard it, I dismissed it, which pains me so much to say now as a certified Christian life coach. But I wasn't ready. I wasn't where God needed me to be able to serve others well. And so, although I was getting a little bit of clarity that I would do great working with people, do great getting into industrial organizational psychology, so really psychology of the workplace, I wasn't really, really clear on what God had in store for me, but I took that next right step. So consider, friend, what are you good at? What is it that you're created to do? What is it that is so easy for you that maybe others have a challenge with? What comes second nature? And what do you love? So that's a piece of it. What are you created to be good at? For me, that was planning, looking to the future, all that good sort of thing. But then also consider what do you love? What are you passionate about? And that's where I'll take a minute to kind of pause and go back to the story. So I was really good at HR. I ended up going back, getting my master's in HR development, and I did more of the leadership side of things, what I like to call the fun part of HR. Spent time in performance management, helping employees to create development plans and their goals for the year, supporting leadership development programs, creating workshops and facilitating classes, things like that, helping with employee engagement, all that kind of a thing. And I was good at it and I did like it. But at one point, I started to get really curious about what I loved. And that was goal setting. I love setting goals. I loved going deep with people one on one, and I loved Jesus. And so think about, what is it that you love? What is it not just that you're good at, but that you're really, really passionate about? So going back to the story, I was at a point in my life where I was in HR. I was doing well. I was at a consulting firm, incredible job, making an incredible salary. Long story, but had moved from the Northeast to the South, living in Charlotte, North Carolina, where I live now. I wanted to come here so bad. I was engaged to my college sweetheart. We had an amazing apartment in Uptown. I mean, everything was going great. And that's when I knew something was off. All of my boxes were checked. If you're also a go-getter or a doer, you know what this is like. You're always striving, always achieving. So all my boxes were checked, but I was still feeling empty. And that's when I realized that is as silly as it might sound, or maybe not silly at all, but there is in fact a God-sized hole with each of us that needs to be filled and can only be filled by Him. So that weekend afternoon, I drove myself on down to the Billy Graham Library. I pulled up to the guard gate and I rolled down my window manually. I was still driving a car where it had one of those cranks and I had to roll it on down. And as I rolled that down, there were also tears rolling down my cheeks. As the kind gate, the guard gate, if you've ever been to the library before, you know, as soon as you drive in and start interacting with anyone, even the guard gate, you just feel so seen and cared for and loved. And they welcomed me and they asked if there was anyone with me or if I was by myself. And I was alone. And the gravity of that really hit me. I'm alone right now. And I think that's exactly where God needed me to be. He needed it to just be me and to be me and Him. I needed to just be open and accept Him in a powerful way. Maybe that's where you're at. Maybe you are surrounded by people you love, maybe friends, maybe a spouse, maybe family, but you're also just feeling alone. And so I would encourage you to lean into that. I would encourage you to spend time in quiet with Him because He has something powerful to share with you and He'll share it. So I went to the Billy Graham Library, walked through, read about Billy Graham's life, and was just uplifted. I just felt God's presence so beautifully and so sweetly. And I knew something was changing. And I continued on that evening, went to a church service, and just let God come into my life in a way that he had never been before. I'd grown up a believer, been baptized, participated in church choir, bells, church camps. Maybe you've done the same. But God started to come into my life in a whole new way. And I pray that same thing for you, friend, if that hasn't happened already. And so I just knew at that time that something was happening. And so I continued on in my HR career, was at a couple of different companies. I had realized after traveling that that was just not for me with consulting. It's not quite as glamorous as you think it might be. So I was with a couple of different incredible companies. Really enjoyed it, had great experiences, but just knew there was more, and that God wanted more for me too. And so there were a couple of different key people that stood out along my journey. One is Laura Casey. You might have heard of her. You might have heard of Cultivate What Matters and the Power Sheets. But as I was learning a bit more about her and her organization, it kind of struck me like, oh my goodness, wow, goal setting and Jesus can go hand in hand. And then I also found a dear, dear friend now, an amazing mentor, Lisa Allen. She's with a company called Proverbs 31 that you might have heard of too. And Lisa had attended a school called Christian Coach Institute. And so I spoke with her, learned a little bit more about what Christian coaching is. And I'll talk all about that in a future episode so you can really understand what that is and the power in it if you've been curious. But I knew. So this was back in 2016. And I knew that I needed to pursue that. And so the next kind of point for you, friend, to consider is, what is your pain? So for me, the pain was knowing that there was more, knowing that even though I had everything that the world says I should have or could have, there was more. There was something else out there. And I felt an emptiness too. So that was my pain. So what is your pain? What is that longing that is in your heart that needs to be fulfilled? And let me tell you, usually people find passion in one of two ways. Passion, or purpose, rather. Purpose can either come from passion or purpose can come from pain. And for me, it was a little bit of the two. So consider for you, what is your pain? What is your passion? And you might find your purpose in that place. So from there, went on to pursue the Christian coaching program. Ended up thinking that that would be something that I would do on the side as I continued to work in the HR space. But God, right? But God, He can do more than we could ever think or imagine. So I was, fast forward a couple of years, was with my husband at Alice Beach, Rosemary Beach area, one of the most gorgeous beaches in the Panhandle of Florida. I would highly recommend you go, or even just look it up on Google. It's just stunning. And we were there celebrating my 30th birthday. So I was in a job at that point, still in HR. I was doing great, y'all. I was making close to a 6-figure salary, had a team that I loved and loved me, had an incredible manager, had great hours, was making an impact, marked as a high potential, incredible growth potential in all sorts of ways. But I just knew that God was calling me to something more and something different. And I was sharing these recognitions with my husband as we strolled along the most gorgeous beach at sunset. And he said what I think was lodged deep in my heart, but I was afraid to face. And he said, I think it's time. I think it's time for you to take the leap and to leave the corporate job and pursue Christian coaching full time. And so with that, guys, think about, who is it in your life that's going to breathe life into you? Who is it that's going to challenge you to go deeper and go further than you might on your own? Who is it that sees the potential in you that you might not even see in yourself? And be with those people. Be with those people. Let them speak to you. Let them challenge you and invite them in. So I'm so grateful for that special day and that trip we had, and my husband saying, yes, let's do this. Let's do something that's unconventional. Let's do something that the world would say is crazy because we know that God is leading. So, where is God leading you to? Where is He leading you to that might look different than what the world would call regular, if you will, success? Get curious about what that is and spend time in prayer and spend time talking with those who know you well, exploring whether that next step might make sense. And then the next thought, you guys, is to consider, what do people need? So I had heard a quote one time, I think it's Frederick Buechner, that where the world's deep hunger and your deep gladness meet is where your passion lies. So think about what it is that just sets you on fire, and then what it is that the world desperately needs. What is it that people are craving and longing for that you can fill that gap? And for me, it's women who are in the messy middle of really hard stories. They're in places where things might look really good on the outside. They're doing great things. They have people that love them. They've got great jobs, but they just know, they lie down at the end of the day and know that there's more. They know that they might be called to be doing something different. They know that they could be experiencing a different level of contentment. They know that they might be able to be giving back in a more meaningful and powerful way. They know that they might need more focus and more purpose. They might know the right answers, if you will, but they're just not living them out. And so that's what I feel called to do, is to support women in their journeys and support them to live out an intentional and God-centered life while more fully loving the Lord and themselves and others. So friend, think about what it is that people need and how you can fill that need. And so that places me a little bit where I am right today, is serving as a Christian life coach for purpose-driven women who crave more. It wasn't an easy journey. It was messy. I didn't know what God had gifted me to do for a while. I was afraid to even step into that for a bit. It was scary thinking that I was going to do something so misaligned with what the world thinks is good. But the more time you spend with Him, the more time you spend in His Word, the more you're going to be convicted of that next step. And to let you in on a little insight, when I did give my notice back last summer at this point, it was scary. I was so excited, but I also had a little bit of fear still that morning that I had woken up. And I just remember thinking, God, I thought this would feel different. I thought this would be different today. And I had remembered that I did not get here on my own. And friend, you're not going to get to that place on your own either. It's going to take a lot of connection with Him and a lot of leading from Him. And so I thought to myself, let me go back to the Word and be filled up by Him so that I can do the hard thing. One of my favorite scriptures is that His power is made perfect in our weakness. And so I was feeling weak that morning, and I opened my Joyce Meyer devotional, and you guys, you won't believe it. The title for that day was Do It Afraid. And that's exactly the God wink I needed. That's the God wink I needed to go in and do the thing and do it afraid. And so, y'all, I have so much more good content and fun stories and tips and helpful and practical tools to get you from where you are to where God wants you to be. So know that so much more is to come. This is only the very tip of the iceberg, but I'm just so excited to be on this adventure with you to help you just live and step boldly into what's next. And so before we wrap today, a couple of questions to think about. Maybe pause, write your responses to this if you haven't already. Consider, what is it that He created you to be good at? What is it that He created you to love and have a passion for? What is your pain? What is part of your story that He's allowed pain? And what is the purpose in that pain? And then consider, what do God's people need? What are they longing for and craving that you might be able to step into and support them in? So that's a wrap for today. I pray that this was a blessing. I pray that this episode sparked something big in you that is just going to change you and others for eternity. Can't wait for next time.